Grazie. Good morning, everyone. Well, as you can see, I'm using as a title of my presentation one of the proverbs that we heard yesterday from Professor Alexander. Quien si va a Liorna, si negro va, mas negro torna. Basically, the subject is Levant and Europe, advantages and defects in the eyes of a Bosnian Sephardic Emigree to Liorna. So, first of all, I want to show you a beautiful passage, which is the oldest known example of typical Bosnian Sephardic linguistic inferiority. The guy says in his book, well, let me first say a few things about the book. The book is called La Huerta de Oro, and it was printed in 1778 in Livorno. This is after the author David Atias, who was born in Bosnia and Herzegovina, has already lived in Livorno for 9 years. He moved to Livorno in 1769. So after already living for 9 years in Livorno, he's basically writing the book called La Huerta de Oro, and it is revolutionary from many different points of view. First of all, it seems to be the first known secular book written in Ladino in the Ottoman Empire, or by somebody coming from the Ottoman Empire. Second of all, its form is also very unusual, because it is basically epistolarian book. He's writing epistola to his brethren who stayed in the Levant. So he is writing an introduction, a short introduction, 7 pages into Italian language, just helping Ladino speakers to switch to Italian as soon as possible. He's also explaining the, how will you call it, the governing rules of French, and but he also has a small treatise on physiognomy. So basically any kind of information he found interesting for himself in the West, and he felt would be helpful to his Sephardic brethren when doing commerce with Livorno. He is putting it into one single book. So it's everything you need to know about European Union for people coming from the Ottoman Empire. When I say the first example of the first written example of this complex of linguistic inferiority, you can see here he says, "Y ya veréis que percurrí más que pudí a declarar las mis hablas en lengua levantina." So he doesn't call it Ladino, he doesn't call it Judo-Spanish, he calls it lengua levantina. "Para ser entendido de vos y de todos, siendo sé que hay mucha gente que no entienden la verdadera lengua española." I'm writing this in Levantine because I'm aware that many of you don't understand the real Spanish. So many a time researchers of Ladino think that this inferiority complex is something that developed in early 20th century, when researchers from the community itself started calling Ladino jargon, not the language, a mixture of languages and so on. But we can see that even in the late 18th century, there were Sephardic Jews living in the West and already making a difference between the real Spanish and unreal Spanish. Now, well, at least when he is writing La Lengua Levantina, unlike many people today, who because of this same inferiority complex are trying to de-orientalize and de-Ottomanize and re-Westernize and re-Romanize and re-Castilianize the language, he is not doing that. He is writing the pure Lengua Levantina of the Ottoman merchants, Sephardic merchants. So we can see it the best way to see it is from a text he translates from French to Lengua Levantina. So here we have a text in French, and then look at his translation into lengua levantina, y por esto damos orden a los nuestros queridos y fieles consejeros y gente que hace la figura de nuestra corte en el Consejo de Bordeaux, como también a los pashas, a los aznadares de la Francia, a Jumrukjis y Capitán Pashas, and so on. So when translating into Judeo-Spanish, he basically uses plenty of Ottoman terms, first of all because he didn't have any others, and at his time and in his place it wouldn't make any sense just to leave the French words, as the Sephardic elite will be doing 100 years later or 150 years later. So, I'm sorry that you can't see the entire passage every time, but most of the time you can. So, to say a bit more about the place where David Atias was born, it's Bosnia, so when it's not Near East, I'm using your sentence, Peter, when it's not Near East, it's Near West. So being born over there, he says, look, I mean, we are speaking about the end of 18th century, and these are the languages that our author speaks. He says, "Y non desci atrás hasta agora, ni lingua latina, ni francesa, ni inglesa, ni italiana, y algo quanto de la Shona Kodesh," somewhat of Hebrew, somewhat of the sacred tongue, "como también del saber algunos tenieres, y escribir y meldar el griego y el serbesco, o sea, moscovita y el ilírico." He makes a difference in what he calls serbesco, Serbian. He makes a difference between the one written in Cyrillic letters, what today we would call Serbian, and one written in Latin letters, what today we would call Croatian. O sea, moscovito y el ilírico, y hablarlo, como también escribir el turquesco llamado Nesia. That's the time when Turkish language was still written in Arabic script, and there are 4 different types of Arabic script, and he says which of the types he knows to write. He knows Nesia y algún poco del Divaní. Empezado en el breve tiempo que estuve en Turquía, y lo todo hasta un cierto grado y carar. And so on. And then he says, well, now you will probably ask me why I'm not teaching my Sephardic brethren also the Cyrillic letters and so on. That's only because in Livorno there is no printing house which contains those letters. Me dirá alguno que he debido escribir el carácter turquesco y el carácter serpesco, o sea, moscovito, ¿por qué no declaro también los ditos dos alfabetos? Les diré que por non toparse letras de estampa es lo que no lo fice. Now, the main subject of my morning speech is prejudices and his own prejudices, his ways of dealings with prejudices with others, and basically being the fact that we have a Sephardi taken from Spain, brought to the Ottoman Empire, and then out of his free choice leaving the Ottoman Empire and living in Livorno, it's very interesting to see what is his position, especially in, you know, those so different cultures as the Ottoman one and the Livornese one. So he says the following. He says, first of all, interestingly enough, on one side we can see that he's sharing some of the prejudices. Basically, he thinks that many of the prejudices that the West has towards the Ottoman Empire are not necessarily prejudices, but just facts on the ground. One of them, just as we saw in the previous lecture, people do not read too much, and there are no scientific books in Ottoman languages. So he says the following. Y si metí el cabo del pasuk de Bet-Hanan en Devarim, es para dar a entender cuánto sea la premura del Shemit Baraj, para que su pueblo Israel sea tenido de la sumot, por gente sabia y entendida, que les quiso dar jueros y juicios muy sabios y muy santos, ama por nuestros pecados, o sea, por nuestras maldades, somos tenidos de la sumot por gente la más asna, por gente la más asna y la más negra que haya sobre la tierra, diciendo que no sabemos otra esencia que el negociar y engañar al mundo. Okay, so con todo que al filú entre ellos se hallan también la gente asna y engañadera, mas responden que se topan también muchos sabios, quien de astrología, quien de matemáticas, quien de álgebra, quien de geometría, quien de filosofía y muchos otros de cosas virtuosas y doctrinamientos buenos que sirven para abrir y esclarecer los miollos de la gente. Bueno, y en el cabo, ni tomé en ejemplo de la Sumot, que cuanto más van, más y más se van refinando y aformiziguando en las ciencias y artes de los antiguos and so on. So basically he says there is a pasuk in Torah which says that God gave beautiful laws to the people of Israel. And he says, but look at our situation today, when instead of having us for the most intelligent people, everybody takes us for most donkey people in the world. La gente más asna. And then he says, and when I try to defend our honor and pride by saying, well, you have also uneducated people amongst yourselves, they say, yes, we have some uneducated and some educated, but amongst you, everybody is uneducated. Now, he is optimist, though, so he brings this passage which says that, I'm not going to read everything because we don't have enough time, but he basically says that we can see that people who became rich because they were poor, and the only thing that they wanted to achieve when they were poor is to become rich. So if poorness can bring about richness, then probably uneducatedness can bring about culture. So basically he's saying you should use your bad status in which you are at the moment to develop desire to know more and learn more and so on. So at some point we see him sharing the positions of the West towards the East. He also says, for example, that European written business records are superior to Levantine mental business records. And over here he speaks about how easy it is to conduct business when everything is written down, and not like the Ottoman Sephardic merchants used to do by remembering everything all the time. However, though there are negative aspects of European paper sacredness, which is bureaucracy. So he says the people in Europe, they register their contracts with tribunals. And then, whether you like it, whether you dislike it, once you have signed, you have to do business. So he says, porque después de haber hecho el trato con el franco, no pasa como se usa en lugar de la Turquía, en tornar atrás el trato con decir, me engañaste, o no hace para mí este hecho, con decir, hay mi tahtaut, siendo dice el franco que estos son haltiates para él. In other words, you cannot, when doing business with francos, you cannot, which is basically with Europeans, you cannot say the way you can do in Turkey by claiming, oh, this doesn't work for me. This just doesn't work for me. So, okay. Now, on the other side, he tends to believe that transparency of business and love for science, the West is better. But as far as human material is concerned, he seems to believe that East is better. So this is what he has to say about francos. Y más no sea que vos venga a fuerte si ninguno vos dará el Baruch Haba, which means welcome, si ninguno vos convidará en su casa a según uso de Turquía, porque los francos, como no ven provecho de alguno, ni menos en la cara lo miran. Ama si sabrá algún corredor, o sea, Sansal, que sos hombre de parás, money, y que haces hezbón de comprar alguna ropa o de vender, entonces veréis que luego vos se irán refregando a daros los buenos días, and so on. So, basically there is no, as far as he's concerned, there is no genuine hospitability in the West. People are profit-oriented, and they don't even welcome you unless they know that you have some money to spend. But as soon as they learn that you have money to spend, then all of a sudden they start loving you and dancing around you. However, though, Science, transparent business, records, committing to writing are the pluses of the West. Genuine hospitality are the pluses of the East. And then there are some neutral cultural differences where no culture is considered to be better. He sees these as neutral category. So, for example, el dormir es todo en camanaltos, que los tienen siempre hechos. Now, a Bosnian or Ottoman Sephardic house, just like the rest of Ottoman houses, was kind of Japanese/IKEA house. In other words, any room is highly convertible. So there is nothing in the room besides eseke all around it. And then you want to convert it into a dining room, you put the table in the middle. Finished with eating, you take the table out. You want to convert it into a bedroom, you put the colchas on the floor, everybody sleeps there, then in the morning you take them out. However though, so in Sephardic culture, cama en alto, which means the high bed, not bed on the floor. The high bed was usually used when there is a new child and everybody used to visit the mother, then the mother and the child would be in cama en alto. Now he's informing his Sephardic brothers that in Europe and in Livorno, they have camas en alto all the time, which means that certain rooms are only for sleeping. En lugar de sofás tienen sillas alrededor de la casa y espejos y pinturías por las paredes. Now, why would he add the information about espejo? Because anybody traveling in the Ottoman parts knows that Ottoman espejos, the Ottoman mirrors, whether in Sephardic, whether in Muslim, whether in Christian houses, had beautifully adorned back, because you would not keep the mirror facing you. Why? Because mirror was connection point between two worlds. So basically everybody would have mirror towards the wall. Only when you use the mirror, you turn the mirror towards your face, and otherwise you are looking at the back of the mirror. So he's informing his Ottoman friends that when coming to Livorno, you will see people having mirrors, not only their beds are 724, but also their mirrors are 724. And interestingly enough, people here, if you didn't know, el comer de ellos es en mesas altas. They eat around high tables, y se asentan en sus sillas y cada uno tiene su plato. Every person in Ottoman Empire, every dish has its own plate, and then everybody is eating from different plates. But here in Europe, everybody has his own plato, de delante con su tovajica, pirón y cuchara. La comida es parte uno de la mesa y da a cada uno la su parte que vos sea todo de aviso. You should know all of this. So obviously he's speaking about other similar cultural differences, like for example, you should not take off the jacket when you are visiting Europeans, because it's considered to be impolite. But on the other side, something that would be considered impolite is expected in Europe, which means that when you enter somebody's home, you should take off your hat, which is something you don't do in the Ottoman Empire, because that would be disrespectful. That's what you do in bathroom or when you are with your wife. Okay, so interestingly enough, you would expect him to prefer the state of law, European state of law, to whatever we tend to believe the Ottoman Empire was, the dying out, corrupt, and so on. Well, as far as our author is concerned, Shariatic courts are better than European courts. And he says the following: Y no sea que entendáis que los pleitos de Francia sean altarse de los de Turquía, que en cuanto vas delante del Cadi, adentro afuera, vos corta el din. Ama entre los francos no es así, porque los juzgos de ellos es con mucho descanso y con mucha avareza y pudrimiento de salud y derretimiento de bolsa de aquel tal hombre que tiene la desventura de pelear con ellos, siendo le van chupando y menguando la bolsa de la hacienda a poco a la vez. So you should not expect, when having a case in European court, you should not expect the European Qadi to decide immediately on the spot. Rather, these are things that can take away all your money and all your time, because it takes months and years for justice to appear in a European court. However, though, French or Europeans are good because they are rational, while the Ottomans are determinist or fatalist. And then he brings an entire treatise showing that there is no place for Sephardic Jews to believe in determination. And the name of this treatise is Del Kismet, determination, de Turquía y del saber de Francia. So people in Europe, they believe in intelligence, and people in the Ottoman Empire believe in determination. Now he's a first Sephardic modern author, not only because he's writing secular literature, but also because he is not treating paternalistically his audience, and he also has this kind of introspective, and he's trying to imagine himself in the eyes of his reading public. So he's not speaking from high, he's not speaking from high, like usually rabbinical authors to general Ladino-speaking masses. So we can see that he says the following thing. I know that there is a Sephardic saying which says, habla la verdad, perde la amistad. Whoever speaks truth, he loses his friends. Ma a mí poco me importa perder la amistad de los que no son amigos de la verdad. But I couldn't care less if I had to lose the friendship of those who are not friends of the truth. Porque es natural que la amistad de estos tales no puede ser verdadera ni firme, siendo son enemigos de la verdad, because friendship of those people doesn't count a lot, because they are enemies of the truth. And then he says, que teniendo el tino a los mis hechos de negocio, non puedo estar a perder el tiempo de tornar otra vez a cerner por el receto del miollo todo modo de habla y todo modo de la quirdí, para que salga la flor de las hablas y que no haya ninguna palabra morena que pueda vocear el chef del quien la melda, siendo yo entendí de hablar todas las virtudes y de no punchar a ninguno. Por esto vos lo digo adelanto, que perdonéis y ansí estamos alegre y beshalom. In other words, he says, I really don't have time to lose by picking words that everybody will love. So just take it for what it is. Like it, you don't like it, you don't like it. And then you can see that he's also combating the possible critique of his book. And he says like this, y cierto que ya hubiera continuado a hablar más en esto, si no fuera que me viesase tirar por la falda de aquel sabio y de aquel sheret y malicioso, diciéndome que me amudezca y que no hable más en daño de ellos, si no quiero ser llamado de todos loco y asno, siendo me dicen que no cale despertar a quien durme y que es menester que sepan en el mundo los asnos. He says, and some people will tell me, why are you writing all of these things? Everybody will hate you, everybody will think that you are stupid. Leave the stupid be stupid. Why should you be the one telling them the truth? And he takes upon himself to be the mirror of the Sephardic society in the Ottoman Empire, telling them what are the good and what are the bad aspects of their culture. And he thinks that he has this responsibility towards the community. Now, to make a long story short, and to conclude, we can basically see a position in a time where the future dominance of the West was not still obvious. If you read the similar writings by the Sephardic elite 100 or 200 years later, 150 years later, then it will be obvious that everything Western, more or less, everything Western is good, and more or less everything Eastern is bad. And you will see these attempts of the people to Westernize themselves, to de-orientalize themselves, to switch to European names, to switch to European clothes, and so on. Now here, we see much more matured and tuned position of a person who basically considers himself to be neutral. And he says, I'm judging everything from what should be rational. So rationally speaking, it's better to have the state court decide the things fastly, because if you are not a Livornese, if you came from abroad, you can't be there for 2 years until they decide. On the other side, being more alphabetical and less oral is better for the merchants. And then interestingly enough, when it comes to mere cultural things, which are really matter of culture, whether you put your hat on or you don't, whether you have your bed up or not, he leaves them as neutral. So this is all only 100 years before Bosnian Jewry joined the West without being asked whether they wanted to or not. And it's really refreshing position, especially compared with more traditional unison positions of the Ottoman Sephardic rabbinical elite. Thank you.